I still remember that morning like it happened yesterday. The sun had barely risen above the fields, and the air still carried the smell of rain from the night before. I was sitting by the window, holding a cup of tea that had long gone cold, when my daughter-in-law's words echoed in my head again, "You're not family now." It wasn't the first time someone had hurt me with words. Life has a way of testing you, and I had learned to smile through pain. But that day, those words felt different. They didn't just hurt, they hollowed me out from the inside. I was born and raised in a small village, surrounded by rice fields and mango trees. My husband, Harish, and I built our life there, simple, quiet, and honest. We didn't have much, but we had each other. We worked hard, shared our meals, and laughed about small things, like when the cow would wander into the garden, or when the radio would lose its signal during the rain. When our son, Ramesh, was born, he became the center of our little world. He had his father's smile and my eyes. I remember holding him close, promising myself that no matter how hard life got, I'd always make sure he felt loved. Harish passed away when Ramesh was 15. A fever took him in just a few days. That's when I first learned what real silence sounds like, not the quiet of night, but the silence that follows a goodbye you never saw coming. After Harish was gone, it was just me and Ramesh. I worked the fields during the day and sewed clothes at night. He studied hard, and I was so proud when he left for the city to find a job. It broke my heart to see him go, but I told myself it was for the best. "He'll have a better life there," I'd whisper to the empty kitchen, pretending Harish could still hear me. At first, Ramesh called every week. He'd tell me about his new job, his friends, the noise of the city. I would listen to every word, smiling through the ache of missing him. Sometimes, when the line crackled, I'd close my eyes and just listen to his breathing. It reminded me that he was still out there, still mine. Then one day, he told me about a girl. "Her name's Priya, Ma," he said, his voice soft but nervous. "She's kind, and she makes me happy." I remember smiling. I'd prayed for him to find love, someone who'd care for him the way I did. "When will you bring her home?" I asked. "Soon, Ma. Maybe next month." That next month turned into a year. And when they finally came, things already felt different. It was early summer when they arrived. The heat hung heavy in the air, and I had been cleaning the house for days, sweeping, dusting, cooking Ramesh's favorite dishes. When I saw him step out of the car, my heart almost burst with joy. He looked older, confident, but tired. And beside him stood Priya, tall, graceful, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ma, this is Priya," he said. I held her hands and said softly, "Welcome home, Beta." She nodded politely, but there was something guarded in her expression, as if she was already measuring the space between us. At lunch, I noticed how Ramesh kept glancing at her, waiting for her approval before speaking. I told myself it was just nerves, that she needed time to feel comfortable. But deep down, a quiet worry began to grow. The first few days passed smoothly. We cooked together, shared stories, and took evening walks by the fields. I tried my best to make her feel like my daughter, not just my son's wife. But slowly, I started to notice small changes, tiny cracks that widened with time. She'd sigh when I gave advice. She'd rearrange the kitchen as if my way wasn't good enough. Once, I heard her whisper to Ramesh, "Your mother's too old-fashioned." "How did you grow up like this?" I wanted to pretend I didn't hear it. But that night, as I lay on my cot, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe I was old-fashioned. Maybe I didn't belong in their new, modern world. Still, I told myself love would bridge the gap. After all, I'd given my whole life to raise Ramesh, surely, love would bring us together again. But love, I've learned, sometimes fades quietly, not with anger, but with distance. Ramesh started visiting less often after their wedding. His calls became shorter, his tone distracted. When I asked if everything was all right, he'd say, "Of course, Ma. We're just busy." One day, Priya called instead. "Ma, Ramesh got a promotion," she said. "Oh, that's wonderful," I replied. "When are you both coming home to celebrate?" There was a pause. Then she said gently, "We're not sure, Ma. Things are quite hectic here." I hung up with a smile, but tears rolled down before I even realized it. The years went by like that, short calls, missed visits, polite excuses. The house grew quieter, and my days longer. I filled my time with chores, neighbors, temple visits, anything to keep from waiting by the phone. Then, one winter morning, a letter arrived. It was from Ramesh. He wrote that they were expecting a baby. My heart leapt with joy. A grandchild. I could already imagine holding that little one, singing the same lullabies I sang to him. I wrote back immediately, pages filled with blessings, advice, and excitement. I even knitted small socks and a blanket, sending them by post. Months passed, and I heard nothing. Until one day, I got another call, from Priya. Her voice was cold. "Ma, the baby's here." "A boy." "Oh, thank God," I cried. "When can I come see him?" There was silence. Then she said, "We're not ready for visitors yet." I didn't understand. I thought maybe she needed rest. So I waited. And waited. One summer later, I finally decided to visit them myself. I packed sweets, gifts, and my best sari. I imagined Ramesh's face lighting up when he saw me, imagined holding my grandson for the first time. But when I reached their home, things didn't go as I dreamed. Priya opened the door. She looked surprised, not pleasantly, but like someone caught off guard. "Oh. Ma. You didn't tell us you were coming." "I wanted to surprise you," I said softly, handing her the sweets. "Where's Ramesh?" She hesitated. "He's at work." I nodded and smiled. "And the baby? May I see him?" She looked down at the floor, then back at me. "He's sleeping." So I waited an hour, then two. When Ramesh finally came home, he looked startled to see me. "Ma. You should have told me you were coming." "I missed you," I said, reaching for his hand. "And my grandson too." He forced a smile, but his eyes darted toward Priya. Something unspoken passed between them. That night, I slept in the spare room, not the one beside theirs where I used to stay. The next morning, Priya barely spoke to me. I tried to help, cooking breakfast, folding clothes, but she stopped me each time. "Ma, please rest. We have a maid for that." I wanted to tell her that doing small things for my family was what made me feel like family. But I stayed quiet. Finally, on the third day, she said it. Her tone was calm, too calm. "Ma, I think it's better if you go back home." I stared at her, confused. "Back home? I thought I could stay a few more days." She sighed. "Ramesh and we need our space. You've done so much for him, but now he has his own family." Her words were sharp but soft, like a blade wrapped in silk. And then she added, almost under her breath, "You're not family now." I froze. The world seemed to go silent, even the ceiling fan stopped humming. I wanted to say something, anything. But all I managed was a faint, "I see." Ramesh came out of the bedroom just then. He looked at us both, unsure what had happened. "Priya?" he asked. She simply said, "It's time your mother went home." He didn't argue. He didn't even meet my eyes. I tried to help, cooking breakfast, folding clothes, but she stopped me each time. "Ma, please rest. We have a maid for that." I wanted to tell her that doing small things for my family was what made me feel like family. But I stayed quiet. Finally, on the third day, she said it. Her tone was calm, too calm. "Ma, I think it's better if you go back home." I stared at her, confused. Back home? I thought I could stay a few more days. She sighed. "Ramesh and we need our space. You've done so much for him, but now he has his own family." Her words were sharp but soft, like a blade wrapped in silk. And then she added, almost under her breath, "You're not family now." I froze. The world seemed to go silent, even the ceiling fan stopped humming. I wanted to say something, anything. But all I managed was a faint, "I see." Ramesh came out of the bedroom just then. He looked at us both, unsure what had happened. "Priya?" he asked. She simply said, "It's time your mother went home." He didn't argue. He didn't even meet my eyes. The next morning, he drove me to the bus stop. We sat in silence. I clutched the little bag of baby clothes I'd brought as gifts, still unused. "Take care of yourself, Ma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. "You too, Beta. And, give my love to the baby." He nodded but didn't turn back as I boarded the bus. Through the window, I watched the city fade behind me. The fields returned, the trees, the small houses. But I didn't feel home. I felt empty. When I reached my house, everything looked the same cracked wall, the same quiet kitchen. But the air felt heavier. For days, I didn't speak much. The neighbors came to ask how my visit went. I smiled and said, "They're doing well." At night, I'd sit outside, staring at the stars, wondering if my grandson had eyes like his father. I imagined him growing up without knowing me, calling someone else grandma. That thought hurt more than any words ever could. I used to think that family was something permanent, something that couldn't be taken away. But now I know, sometimes it's not the blood that binds us, but the heart. And when the heart is pushed aside, you become a stranger in the house you once called your own. Every time I hear a baby cry from a neighbor's yard, I stop and listen. Just for a moment, I pretend it's my grandson. Then I smile, even though tears roll down. Because even if they told me I'm not family now, in my heart, I always will be. The days after I came back from the city felt longer than any I'd known. Each sunrise reminded me of the life I'd built, the one I thought would never change. The yard still smelled of wet earth, the old swing still creaked under the neem tree, and the same radio still whispered faint songs when I turned it on. But everything sounded different now. Because silence had learned a new shape in my home. I didn't speak much to anyone. The neighbors thought I was unwell. "Are you all right, Akka?" one of them asked. I smiled. "Just tired," I said. But it wasn't my body that was tired. It was my heart. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of Ramesh. His childhood slippers still sat by the back door. His school trophies collected dust on the shelf. I couldn't bring myself to move them. It felt like if I kept them in place, he might walk in any day, calling, "Ma, I'm home." But weeks passed and no one came. The first letter I wrote to him after that visit was short. Just a few lines. "I hope you and Priya are doing well. Give my blessings to the baby. Love, Ma." No reply. I told myself maybe the letter got lost, or maybe he was busy. So I wrote again. "The harvest was good this year. The neighbors ask about you. I miss you." Still nothing. The third time, I didn't even write a letter. I just sat at the table, pen in hand, and stared at the empty paper until tears blurred the ink. Maybe some distances can't be crossed by words alone. Months turned into a year. The baby must have started walking by then, maybe even speaking a few words. I wondered if he'd seen my photo, if Ramesh had told him, "That's your grandmother." But deep down, I feared the truth. Maybe my name was never mentioned at all. Sometimes, in the evenings, I'd sit outside with my neighbor, old Shanta. She was widowed like me, her sons lived far away too. We'd shell peas together or peel tamarind, talking about little things. "Do they call you often?" she'd ask. "Not as much," I'd say. She'd nod, and there'd be a pause, the kind of silence only mothers understand. "You know," she said once, "children grow, and they carry our hearts with them. We just forget they never promised to bring them back." I smiled sadly. Yes, maybe that's how it is. One afternoon, I was sweeping the veranda when I saw the postman coming down the lane. My heart skipped. Maybe, finally, a letter from Ramesh. But when he handed it over, I saw it wasn't from him. It was from the electricity board. The disappointment hit harder than I expected. I sat down on the steps, letter in hand, and cried quietly. Not because of what was said or unsaid, but because of what I kept hoping for. That night, I took out the small box where I kept Ramesh's old things. His baby bracelet. His first drawing. A broken toy truck. And at the bottom, a small photo, him at age 10, smiling, missing a front tooth. I touched the photo gently. "You were mine once," I whispered. The years rolled on slowly, like tired waves. Every season came and went, the smell of jasmine in spring, the hum of rain in monsoon, the crackle of wood in winter. People changed around me. New families moved into nearby houses. Some of them called me Amma out of respect. They'd bring me sweets during festivals or ask me to bless their children. And though their kindness warmed me, a part of me stayed hollow. Because blessings are easy to give, but what I really longed for was someone to call me Ma again. Sometimes, I'd dream of Ramesh. He'd walk through the door, holding his son's hand, smiling like the old days. "Ma," he'd say, "we came home." And in my dream, I'd hold my grandson close, feeling his heartbeat against mine. But each time I woke, the room would be empty, just the soft rustle of the curtain and the sound of a rooster outside. Dreams are cruel like that. They give you what life won't, only to take it away before sunrise. One day, word reached the village that Ramesh had been promoted again. I heard it from a distant cousin who'd met him in the city. "He's doing very well," she said. "Lives in a big house now. Looks happy." I nodded and smiled. He deserves it. But when she asked, "Do they visit you often?" I just said softly, "They're busy." After she left, I sat by the temple pond and watched the ripples spread across the water. I thought of all the times I had prayed for Ramesh's success, never once asking for anything in return. I'd only prayed for his happiness. But I'd forgotten, happiness can sometimes erase the need for what once made you happy. The following year, during festival season, I decided to send gifts, small ones. I packed a handmade sweater for the child, some sweets, and a letter. Dear Ramesh and Priya, I hope you and the little one are well. I still remember the day you were born, the smell of the rain that morning. I hope your son brings you the same joy you brought me. Your loving Ma. I sent it with the neighbor's son, who worked in the city. Weeks passed. He came back one evening. Auntie, he said, hesitating. They got the parcel. I smiled. Oh, that's good. He looked down. But, they didn't say anything. I nodded, pretending it didn't sting. That's all right, Beta. Thank you for taking it. But when he left, I went inside and cried, quietly, the way people do when no one is around to ask why. Time has a strange way of softening memories, but not erasing them. Even now, years later, I still remember every word Priya said, not because I hate her, but because that was the moment I realized something. You can love with your whole heart, and still not be wanted. And that's a pain no mother should have to carry. My hair turned gray. My hands grew slower. The fields that once fed me are now cared for by a neighbor's son. I still live in the same house, though half of it stays closed to save cleaning effort. Some days, when the wind blows from the east, I sit by the door and imagine voices, a child laughing, Ramesh calling, Ma. It's just the wind, I know. But I let myself believe. Faith doesn't always mean believing in God. Sometimes, it just means believing that love, somewhere, still remembers you. A few years ago, I fell sick. Fever, chest pain, the doctor said it was nothing serious but advised rest. The neighbors took care of me. Shanta cooked meals and stayed the night when I couldn't get up. Ramesh didn't know. I didn't tell him. I didn't want to be a burden. One night, lying awake, I whispered to the empty room, if he knew, would he come? The silence that followed was my answer. I closed my eyes and smiled, not from peace, but from surrender. As I grew older, my steps slowed, but my thoughts didn't. I often sat on the veranda, weaving little baskets from dried palm leaves. I'd give them to anyone who came by. It gave me purpose. Children from the village sometimes ran up to me. Auntie, tell us a story, they'd say. And I would smile, telling them stories about kindness, about love that doesn't fade even when people do. One little girl once asked, "Do you have children, Auntie?" I paused for a long moment. "Yes," I said finally. "I have a son." "Where is he?" she asked. "Far away," I whispered. "But he's happy." She smiled. "Then you're happy too, right?" I looked at her tiny face and said softly, "Yes, maybe." She giggled and ran off, leaving me there, half smiling, half breaking. I never heard from Ramesh again after that. No letters, no calls. Sometimes, I imagine he must think of me on certain days, maybe my birthday, maybe his father's death anniversary. Maybe he even feels a small tug in his heart when he smells the kind of food I used to cook. But I'll never know. What I do know is that love doesn't vanish when it isn't returned. It simply finds quieter places to live, in old photos, in half-remembered lullabies, in the way your heart still flutters when someone mentions their son. Now, when I light the lamp each evening, I pray not for reunion, but for peace. I pray that wherever Ramesh and his family are, they are safe, loved, and kind. And I pray that if my grandson ever asks, "Who is Grandma?" the answer he hears is gentle. Even if he never meets me, I hope he grows up knowing that somewhere, far away, there was a woman who loved him long before he was born. Sometimes, I wonder if I made mistakes, if I held Ramesh too close, or not close enough. If I said too much, or stayed too silent. But then I remind myself, mothers are not perfect. We just love, in the only way we know how. And sometimes, that's both our strength and our undoing. Every night, before I sleep, I talk to Harish, my late husband. I tell him about the day, the people who came by, the things I cooked. And sometimes, I whisper, "Our boy is doing well." In my heart, I imagine Harish smiling, saying, "You did good, Meena. You raised him well." And that's enough. Because in some quiet way, even my loneliness has purpose. It reminds me of the love I once had, and that's something no one can take away. The other day, I found one of Ramesh's old shirts, folded neatly in a corner of the trunk. It still smelled faintly of him. I held it for a long time, pressing it against my heart. Then I folded it again, gently, and put it back. Because some memories are meant to be kept, not touched too often, just enough to remind you that you once mattered deeply to someone. If anyone were to ask me now, "Do you still love him after all that happened?" I would smile and say, "A mother doesn't stop loving. She just learns to love quietly." And maybe that's my story, not one of bitterness, not even of forgiveness, just of love that stayed, even when no one noticed. Because love, real love, doesn't always bring people closer. Sometimes, it simply stays behind, in the home that waits, in the hands that pray, in the heart that still whispers one name in the dark. And if, one day, my son ever comes back, he won't find anger here. He'll just find a mother, older and quieter, still waiting by the door. But until then, I'll keep living, keep breathing, keep loving in silence. Because even if they told me I'm not family now, in my heart, I always will be.